Have you ever wondered which of the Chaos Primarchs, those towering god-touched demigods, twisted by the warp, would truly reign supreme if pitted against each other in a cage match? Imagine it, a battlefield where Fulgrim's elegance becomes lethal precision, where Angron's fury burns like a supernova, and where Magnus's mastery of sorcery bends reality itself. This isn't some hypothetical bar fight. This is a war for dominance between beings who shattered worlds and slaughtered legions. Today, we're answering the question that Games Workshop is too scared to touch: which Daemon Primarch is the strongest? In this video, we'll be ranking them from weakest to strongest based on cold hard lore. No fanboy bias, no headcanon fluff, just cold hard facts. And yes, we're going really deep into the lore. Like deeper than Magnus's self-esteem issues,
Gay!
deeper than Mortarion's immune system, and deeper than Fulgrim's drug stash.
Take drugs or alcohol?
What is drugs?
By the time we're done, you might just earn your demonhood, if only from surviving this warp-fueled nonsense. So pour yourself some sickly sweet Slaneshi lean, bathe in some plague juice, rev up your chain axe, and prepare to witness the ultimate chaos throwdown. Let's find out which of these warp-fueled psychos deserves to be crowned the ultimate Daemon Primarch. Now, before we throw these boys into the ring, let's talk about the giant warp elephant in the room. Some of these Primarchs haven't really done much lately. A few of them ascended into demonhood, then peaced out like they had better things to do for the next 10,000 years. Others haven't even returned in the current setting. And thanks to Games Workshop's habit of sprinkling out lore like it's holy water in a drought, we're working with some serious gaps here. We do have some lore from the Daemon Primarchs from the Horus Heresy, but in the current setting, we are definitely lacking. Of the 6 Daemon Primarchs in existence, we've only seen 3 in action in the 42nd millennium: Angron, Magnus, and Mortarion. With Fulgrim returning sometime this year, this video might suddenly become outdated. Please, don't screw me over, you twink. The only 2 Primarchs we haven't heard much from are Perturabo and Lorgar. So, to help fill in the blanks, we're going to use some of their feats from before they became Daemon Primarchs, their base form Primarch days, just to give us a baseline. But before you start foaming at the mouth and crying, "Power Scale Heresy, Power Scale Heresy!" we're not treating those feats as gospel. We're not saying what they did as mortals is equal to their warp-fueled form. It's more like context, giving us a sense of their capabilities, so we're not just blankly staring at a wiki page. It's about painting the full picture, even if some of it is fan-patched together with warp glue and a prayer to Tzeentch. Alright, disclaimers made, time to set the stage. What is a Daemon Primarch? A Daemon Primarch is what happens when you take a genetically engineered superhuman designed by a god emperor, marinate him in trauma and daddy issues, and then deep fry him in chaos. These aren't just chaos space marines with cool drip, these are beings of immense psychic and physical power who have given their souls to their patron god to become fully fused with the warp, so much that they've cast off their physical bodies for ones absolutely stuffed with warp crack. They're immortal-ish, stronger than ever, and absolutely unhinged. Looking at you, Fulgrim. They regenerate wounds in seconds, are capable of flight, and control the heinous forces of their patron gods. But here's the twist. Being a Daemon Primarch doesn't make you invincible. In fact, having shed their last threads of humanity, they're bound to the whims of the warp, unable to remain in real space indefinitely without a powerful anchor, or risk being torn back into the immaterial. And in typical Warhammer fashion, being more powerful just means you die in more dramatic ways. Plot armor, that stuff only applies to Rabute Girlyman and maybe Saint Celestine on her good hair days. Daemon Primarchs, despite being warp-charged gods of destruction, constantly get punked on by Imperial plotlines, random narrative shifts, and occasionally Grey Knights wielding enough plot-convenient MacGuffins to make Batman blush. In an ideal universe, unleashing a storm of warp-infused god power should almost always overwhelm a single mortal, even one as legendary as a loyalist Primarch. Yet in practice, authors repeatedly script underdog victories by having loyalists exploit new vulnerabilities that Daemon Ascension introduces. It becomes less about raw might and more about narrative convenience. Let's talk examples. Magnus the Red is one of the most powerful psychers in the galaxy. He bends reality like it owes him rent. And yet Rabute Gurliman beats him in a duel. Yes, Rabute Excel Spreadsheet Gilliman, the least powerful of all the Loyalist Primarchs, beats Magnus due to the plot-included arrival of the one thing that can beat him, the Sisters of Silence. Or Fulgrim fighting Rogel Dorn during the Siege of Terra. This should have been an earth-shaking duel of two demigods, chained swords clashing, splintered columns trembling. Instead, halfway through, Fulgrim's excess kicks in and he grows bored, completely abandoning the fight to give in to his pleasure in excess. Dorn even later admits that if Fulgrim had truly committed to the duel, Dorn himself would have died. And let's not forget Mortarion getting owned by a combo of Kaldor Drago, who managed to carve his name on his heart. Dude's a walking biohazard, he should be melting planets just by breathing. Instead, he gets blown back by a single Grey Knight. See, that's the thing with Daemon Primarchs. They can die, they can lose, they have immortality with a giant asterisk. And because of that, they're often the designated punching bags of the narrative. They're too powerful to be left unchecked, but they're too killable to ever win for long. They exist to be terrifying for exactly one book, and then defeated in the next, so the Imperium can keep selling miniatures. So while these guys are absolute units on paper, they're never safe from being nerfed by the authors when the mood strikes them. Just keep that in mind as we rank them. So how are we ranking these demon-sized screw-ups? Well, we're ranking these bad boys by raw power. Not vibes, not aesthetic, not who did the most drugs in 30k, looking at you Emperor's children. Just who would win in an all-out, lore-supported brawl. For each Primarch, we'll look into who they are, how and when they ascended, what they're up to in the 41st millennium, and what feats and evidence we have that shows just how strong they are. Let's begin at the bottom and work our way up to the biggest, baddest Demon Primarch of them all. Let me start by saying this loud and clear. All 6 of the Demon Primarchs are absolute monsters. They're warp-infused demigods of carnage capable of crushing cities, annihilating armies, and tearing reality itself apart with nothing but their wrath. These are not your average villains, these are the living avatars of chaos, the nightmares of the current Warhammer setting. In my opinion, any one of these Demon Primarchs could absolutely ragdoll a Loyalist Primarch in a one-on-one fight. But this is Warhammer 40k. Like I said, there's no such thing as a fair duel. So when I rank these 6 monstrous Primarchs, please don't take it as me calling your favorite evil Primarch weak. That's not what this is about. This is simply an analysis of who among them stands above the others in terms of raw power, influence, and sheer terrifying presence. They're all apocalyptic threats, but some apocalypses hit harder than others. But here we are at the bottom of our list with the weakest base Primarch, and now the weakest Demon Primarch, Lorgar the Butt Muncher. Lorgar Aurelian, Primarch of the Wordbearers, was easily the most annoying, whiny, and bootlicking of all the Primarchs. Basically, the galaxy's biggest loser. He spent the early years of the Great Crusade preaching that the Emperor was a god, building temples and writing fanfic about the Imperium's divine glory. Until Big Daddy E himself showed up, lit his favorite planet on fire, and slapped the Wordbearers on the wrist, telling them to knock it off. Utterly shattered by this divine rejection, Lorgar abandoned his worship of the Emperor and began a long, brooding emo walk across the galaxy in search of a new faith. And surprise, surprise, he found it in the worst possible place: the Chaos Gods. Lorgar was arguably the true architect of the Horus Heresy. He laid the groundwork for turning brother against brother, and was directly responsible for the corruption of several Primarchs and their legions. Chief among them was Horus Lubercal, who was once the Emperor's favorite until Lorgar manipulated him like a girl with daddy issues, and got him to embrace chaos. Lorgar became a master of dark sorcery and chaos channeling, wielding powers that could warp reality and drive men mad. His crowning achievement before disappearing from the front lines was creating the Ruin Storm, an enormous warp storm that cut off Rabute Gilliman and the Ultramarines from reinforcing Terra during the siege, effectively leaving the Emperor without his largest legion's help. He was also responsible for ascending Angron to Daemon Primarchhood, and even briefly controlled Daemon Primarch Fulgrim using the knowledge of his true name. A power though, he passed to one of his Space Marines because Logar is a little bitch and was afraid of the consequences of knowing a true Daemon Primarch's name. If you don't know though, by knowing Fulgrim's true name, the person with the knowledge will slowly lose all their memories and essentially become retarded. Despite being the Chaos God's golden boy and the heresy's spiritual leader, Lorgar didn't even stick around to see it through. At one point, he tried to betray Horus, attempting to take control of the traitor forces for himself. And yeah, that went about as well as you'd expect. Horus caught wind of the plan and metaphorically and literally spanked Lorgar into the warp, banishing him from the Traitor War Council before the Siege of Terra even began. Only after being booted from the game did Lorgar finally ascend to full Daemon Primarch status. After betraying his father, corrupting his brothers, and generally being the galaxy's biggest loser, Lorgar finally got the promotion he had been begging for. The atrocities committed by the Wordbearers, planetary genocides, city-side demonic rituals, and sermons that made the Chaos Gods kinda cringe were more than enough to punch Lorgar's ticket to immortality. When he ascended, his birth scream didn't just echo across a battlefield or a planet, it roared through the immaterial, a divine screech of smug vindication. But now, he chills at some temple on the demon world of Sakaris, where he's been sitting in total isolation for thousands of years, deep in meditation. And by meditation, I mean attempting to grow hair. Poor Lorgar. Honestly, it hurts a little, putting him at the bottom of the Daemon Primarch power rankings. On paper, he's a monster. Dude's got total mastery over the immaterial, he's a psyker powerhouse, and since becoming a Daemon Primarch, he's been infused with the warp juice from all 4 Chaos Gods. That's right, Chaos Undivided means Lorgar isn't stuck worshipping just Papa Nurgle or the big red angry man, he gets a little taste of everything. He's also rumored to have mastered Enuncia, the forbidden language of reality warping words that can unmake existence itself with just a syllable. Add that to his already insane warpcraft, and you've got a character who, in theory, should be ripping apart star systems with a sermon and a finger snap. So, why is he at number 6? Like guys, this is an incredibly tough one. I had Lorgar up and down this list at multiple points as I was attempting to reason with my dumb cow brain. On one hand, Enuncia is supposedly one of the strongest weapons in the universe, and if someone is a master at it, then they could in theory change reality with a single word. Pair that with his supposedly enhanced psychic might and warp knowledge and manipulation, and you would think Lorgar is a powerhouse, and he is. To add to that, he's a champion of Chaos Undivided, and as we've seen from the other Undivided champions, they can call upon all 4 powers of the Ruinous Pact. But Lorgar once again finds himself at the bottom of the list, and it's mainly because of 2 reasons. We don't see him do anything, and the one time we do, he gets clapped. Most of Lorgar's great feats happen off screen. His ascension to demonhood happens in the background. Lorgar has been chilling on Sicarius for thousands of years, and while that might make him a great monk, it doesn't help his combat resume. Now, let's talk about that time he finally steps back into real space. His rematch against the emo bird boy, Corvus Corax. But this isn't base form Corax, this is Warp Form Corax, a mutated shadow warp being who's like if Batman merged with a warp entity and said screw the Codex Astartes. Corax is now a creature of darkness, able to shapeshift and move with terrifying speed and strength. Their battle is supposed to be a reckoning. Daemon Primarch versus warp-touched freak. And what happens? Lorgar gets absolutely folded like a pancake. Straight the fuck up. Corax beats him down so bad that Lorgar has to flee, needing help from his word bearers just to escape. That's a huge L, especially when you consider the supposed scale of Lorgar's power. Simply put, Lorgar is not a frontline brawler. In terms of straight up physical combat, he's like a glass cannon wrapped in scripture. He's not going toe to toe with the big boys in melee. He doesn't have the raw physical aggression of Angron, the plague fueled endurance of Mortarion, or the bladed finesse of Fulgrim. Now you might be thinking, but what about Magnus, Cal? He's also a nerdy warp wizard, right? Yeah, true, but Magnus is a whole different beast. Magnus doesn't just cast spells, he is the spell. This dude can destroy Imperial fleets with a thought, teleport across reality, and collapse suns into black holes. Lorgar is a powerful psyker, just not on the level of Magnus. Maybe if we saw how powerful his usage of Enuncia is, I could change this placement, but it's pretty hard to say if Lorgar is above his brothers when he can't even beat the emo bird boy. Once again, it's tough. I feel like Lorgar has come a long way from getting bodied on the killing fields of Istvan, and it just sucks that he is once again at the bottom of this list. But he just doesn't show me anything to make me put him over the rest of his drug-abusing brothers. So yeah, props for being a psychic powerhouse, but when push comes to shove, Lorgar just doesn't bring enough fists to the fight. In a universe where violence solves everything, his sermon-based combat style leaves him firmly planted at number 6 on this list. Mortarion, Primarch of the smelliest legion in the galaxy, the Death Guard, is what happens when you mix a gas mask, daddy issues, and a lifelong hatred of cleanliness into one brooding pile of shit. Raised on the nightmare planet of Barbarous, a place so toxic it would violate every clause in the Geneva Convention, Mortarion grew up thinking not being able to breathe was just a part of life. So naturally, he slapped a rebreather on his face and decided the best way to cope with life was to inhale chemical warfare straight into his lungs. When Horus dropped his Grand Rebellion like a Warhammer-themed mixtape, Mortarion signed up without much hesitation. Whether it was Istvan, Molech, or just a really gross Tuesday, Mortarion was there, swinging his scythe like a disappointed gym teacher and coughing in people's faces. For a while, he was one of the few traitor Primarchs who hadn't sold his soul to the Chaos Gods. Morty liked to pretend he was above all that nonsense. I don't need the warp powers, I have integrity. Then, Typhus happened. As Mortarion and his legion headed towards Terra, Typhus, who rivals Erebus in being a cunt, and also already a servant of the ruinous powers, killed all the astropaths on board and left the fleet stranded in the warp. You know, the domain of the Chaos Gods. Thus, Nurgle infested the stranded legion with his gifts, which is a polite way of saying infinite diarrhea and external pneumonia. Mortarion found himself cornered. He couldn't resist forever. As his sons slowly died around him, Nurgle offered him salvation. So he broke. Or maybe he just gave in because he got tired of arguing with Typhus and breathing through what was essentially a fart snorkel. Once he embraced proper Nurgle, Mortarion leveled up hard.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's a piece of shit! No longer just a smelly warlord with a scythe, he became the living embodiment of pestilence, a winged disease monster spreading plagues across the galaxy like Oprah giving out free iPads. You get a plague, you get a plague, you get a plague, everyone gets a plague. Mortarion would later go on to fight at the Siege of Terra and square off against the coolest of his brothers, Jagatai Khan, the pimp of the White Scars. And yes, I know I said pimp, I meant it. With one of the coolest duels in the whole series, the Khan managed to out-tank the Smellmaster and banish him back to the warp. Mortarion would later return to real space to capture his own planet, which he fittingly named Plague Planet. Bro literally needs to work on his creativity. Leaving the Death Guard to roam as gross disease warbands, he became more obsessed with the great game in the warp than real-world drama, only popping up now and then to ruin someone's year. But when Rebute Girlyman returned, Mortarion suddenly cared again. He brewed up 7 plagues with the Hand of Darkness, including one that could only be cured by Gilliman himself. And then he launched the Plague Wars across Ultramar. He tried to break through at Connor, got smacked by a maybe saint anime girl in Permino, and finally dragged Guilliman to Lax for their long overdue Primarch showdown. There, Mortarion unleashed the God Blight, a plague designed to kill even a Primarch, offering his brother corruption in exchange for survival, but Guilliman pulled a Divine Uno reverse, channeled Big Daddy E's energy, and blasted Morty back to the warp. Later on, Mortarion would clash with Perturabo in the War of Rust and Ruin, basically two angry Chaos Boomers flinging death and bad vibes at each other. Morty still insists he's not a slave to Chaos, but at this point, he's just Nurgle's moldy Muppet. Tragic. Mortarion isn't just a smelly boy, he's the coronavirus made manifest. If grimy, rotting despair could be weaponized and taught to fly, it'd look a lot like him. As a Daemon Primarch, Mortarion's powers are absolutely terrifying on paper. First off, he's airborne. His massive neurotic wings let him glide over the battlefield like a horrifying plague-ridden vulture. Then there's his aura. Mortarion doesn't just smell bad, he radiates spiritual filth. His presence alone is enough to make seasoned warriors vomit, hallucinate, and black out. Imagine trying to hold your guts together while your lungs fill with supernatural rot, and the guy causing it is hovering above you like a fucking moth. This aura isn't just gross, it's crippling, weakening enemy minds and bodies before Mortarion even lifts a finger. And he's tough. We're talking about laughs off Meltas, shrugs off las cannons, walks out of orbital bombardments with a cough levels of tanky. The man is a walking contagion bunker. He's shown to tank blows that would annihilate a space marine, literally. In the Dark Imperium books, Morty takes a full-on face blast from the hand of Dominion from Guilliman, and doesn't seem to receive any visible damage. That's crazy, cause that same gauntlet literally annihilated a Chaos Space Marine with one blow. Oh, and let's not forget his ability to fucking heal. Every time you manage to hurt him, which is hard enough, he kinda just sloughs off the damage like dead skin. Thanks to Nurgle's blessing, wounds that would kill a lesser being are just minor inconveniences for Morty. He's like the Wolverine if Wolverine was dipped in spoiled milk and left in a swamp for 10,000 years. Top that off with his command over the warp. As a Daemon Primarch, Mortarion is no slouch in the psychic department. He commands sorceries of disease, decay, and despair. His psychic powers can corrode armor, snuff out life force, or just straight up melt your soul into goo. He's basically a plague wizard with the durability of a dreadnought and the presence of a biohazard. On paper, he's an absolute monster. So he's a durable tank with an aura of decay and filth, psychic powers, and to top it all off, has the power increase of being a demon prince. So why is he number 5 on our list? And I know I hear some stinky fans out there screaming, "Wait a falling cow! How is Mortarion lower than Perturabo? Didn't he beat him?" I'm getting to that, little Timmy. Let's look at the receipts. Unlike some of the other Daemon Primarchs, Mortarion actually shows up in the modern setting. But those showings, not great. First, let's talk about his duel with Jagatai Khan. A fight that should have been Mortarion's bread and butter. We're talking endurance warfare, the kind of grimy, grinding deathmatch Mortarion lives for. But the Khan, he's no dummy. He knew he couldn't match Mortarion in raw warp field power, so what does he do? He baits him. The White Scars Primarch tricks Mortarion into a war of attrition, turning the whole thing into a marathon of endurance rather than a contest of brute force. And somehow he wins. Jagatai, despite being poisoned, rotting, and practically melting from exposure, plays the long game. He tanks the stench, outlasts the pain, and when the time's right, tricks the Daemon Primarch into an overextended blow, which he repays by banishing him from real space with a single swing of his sword. Not a great start for the Lord of Endurance, as he loses at his own game. Then we get to the Plague Wars, where Mortarion finally gets to throw down with his goody two-shoes brother, Rabute Girly Man. And yeah, technically Morty wins their first clash, but let's not break out the Nurglings for a victory parade just yet. Beating Guilliman is like dunking on a toddler. It happens all the time. The guy takes L's wherever he goes. He's the poster boy for losing with dignity, if not actual results. So Mortarion roughs him up a bit, flexes the warp's powers, spreads some blade, yada 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 yada. But we all know that's not where the real story ends, because then Big Daddy E shows up. The Emperor ends up channeling his psychic powers through Girlyman, and let's just say he is not happy. Mortarion doesn't just lose, he gets evaporated. This isn't some dramatic back and forth, duel of equals. Nope. Big E rolls in, looks at Morty's crusty ass, and hits him with a "you're a cunt" stare. No dialogue, no effort, just divine revulsion, righteous power, and one disgusted look of "damn, you stink," banishing Morty back to the warp. Of course, we're not saying Morty is a bum because he lost to the Emperor-empowered Guilliman. I'm saying he's a bum because he started monologuing before killing the girly boy himself. But the real big lore banana peel, the War of Rust and Ruin. People online love to say Mortarion beat Peter Turbo. Nope, it's not true. Read the Death Guard Codex. It describes a 7-hour slugfest between the two Primarchs while their legions go all out around them. Mortarion unleashes every pox, plague, and spore in his arsenal. The Iron Warriors suffer, they rust, they collapse, their engines go full Windows Vista mode. But does Mortarion win? No. Perturabo sees the writing on the disease-written wall, pulls back his forces back to preset defenses, blows the battlefield to hell, and retreats. That's not a victory, it's a tactical disengagement. That's Perturabo saying, screw this, I'm not dying for your mildew cosplay. And here's the problem. If Mortarion's entire thing is winning by never dying, by outlasting his enemies in a brutal trench-style warfare, then how the hell did he not secure a clear win in a perfect attrition scenario? He had the home field advantage, the time, the plagues, and still couldn't break his brother. If anything, it proves his Musk just doesn't hit the same when you're fighting other Chaos Primarchs. Mortarion's Aura of Decay doesn't seem to work on people who've spent 10,000 years bathing in warp radiation. So yeah, number 5 on the list feels about right. Mortarion has the power, the presence, the plague, but when push comes to shove, he can't seal the deal. He's the ultimate example of the Primarch who looks unbeatable on paper, but folds the moment someone with plot armor or a decent immune system steps in the ring. He's not a glass cannon, he's a moldy fridge. Hard to move, full of stuff that'll kill you, but ultimately easy to ignore once you stop breathing through your nose. Perturabo, Primarch of the Iron Warriors, is the galaxy's undisputed siege genius, and quite possibly its biggest crybaby. Picture a superhuman warlord who spends more time sulking about the Emperor's lack of applause than actually charging into battle. Make no mistake, this isn't blind loyalty to Rogel Dorn, my autistic king. On the field, Perturabo never did flamboyant charges or dramatic sword swings. He was the happiest watching wars unfold like meticulously planned dominoes. His living legend status comes from masterminding attrition campaigns that broke entire worlds, turning planets into plague-stained graveyards simply by refusing to lift his hammer until the last wall fell. So when and how did the siege-obsessed maestro ascend to Daemon Primarch status? No chronicle records the exact moment of Perturabo's transformation, but all paths lead back to the legendary Iron Cage on Sebestus IV, where Perturabo erected the Eternal Fortress. An 8-pointed star of bunkers, towers, minefields, and hidden galleries all arranged to funnel attackers into merciless kill zones. Rogel Dorn, burning for retribution and determined to forge his legion into a Codex chapterhood, personally led the Imperial Fist against this iron labyrinth. Orbital barrages bounced off the fortress's void shields, and ground forces were funneled into pre-sighted traps. For 3 weeks, Dorn's men fought blade to blade in flooded trenches, refusing to break even as casualties mounted into the thousands. Eventually, the Ultramarines would arrive and force Perturabo to abandon the field, having inflicted grievous losses but failing to annihilate his stubborn foe. In the wake of this masterpiece of attrition, where over 400 Imperial Fist gene seeds were offered to the Dark Gods. Wow, a whopping 400 gene seeds! Keep in mind, guys, this is old lore, and yes, it makes no sense, but hey, I'm just a cow. Chaos Undivided could no longer ignore Perturabo's brilliance, ascending him to Daemon Primarch status. By the 41st millennium, he commanded hellish legions across the Immaterium, forever the Lord of Iron. After the Iron Cage incident and his ascension to Daemon Primarchhood, Perturabo withdrew to the Eye of Terror, where he established Medrengard, a fortress world of blackened spires and demon-forged walls. From this warp-scarred bastion, he marshals Iron Warriors and demonized engines in an endless campaign against the Imperium. Most recently, in the Arc of Omens campaign, Perturabo lent his genius to Vastor the Arcuphane, collaborating on a nightmarish techno-arcana. He provided Iron Warrior detachments to assault the Rock, coordinating siege engines that carve through the fortress's defenses. In the present, Perturabo remains the master of methodical annihilation, scheming from within his obsidian halls. Though his counterparts rage in cosmic fury, he continues refining his blueprint for ultimate siegecraft. An unending testament to the Lord of Iron's enduring calculated brutality. Now, I know the Iron Warrior losers are crying right now. How could you put Perturabo at number 4? Well, let me explain it, little Timmy. First off, Perturabo is a fucking loser.
Hey guys! We got some mind losers out here!
Yes, that's my first real reason. Deal with it.
Why you boring me? I'm right.
Hey guys, I'm just kidding. Can't you take a joke from the cow? So why is the Iron Lord at number 4 on our list? Well, there's a couple reasons that I'm about to go into, but the simple answer is that Perturabo is not in the traditional sense a warrior. Sure, he can lead armies, is a master at siege warfare, and is able to control the logistics of millions of warriors, but in hand-to-hand combat, he is one of the weakest of his brothers. When we ranked his early base form months ago in my Primarch ranking video, I put him at 14, just below Mortarion, which I feel like is a solid spot for him, due to many factors, like having basically no actual fights with him in it, and the fights we do see, he takes quite the beating, but ends up winning? If you could call getting bent over by Angron winning. We have the same issue with Daemon Primarch Perturabo. As one of the Primarchs who has yet to officially return, thanks for that Games Workshop, you nerd. I mean, honestly, how many times can you kill off Angron? I'm getting tired of it, man.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
But yeah, there's hardly any lore on Peter Turbo in the 42nd millennium. The one tidbit we do have is from the Death Guard Codex, which I discussed earlier, where Mortarion and Peter threw down an attempt to see who smelled worse. But like I stated earlier, Peter Turbo doesn't technically lose this fight. Mortarion and Peter duel for 7 straight hours while their legions fight around them. And once again, here's where I see a lot of YouTubers get it wrong. Peter Turbo does not lose this fight. In the literal excerpt from the Death Guard Codex, it says Peter Turbo withdrew because his legion was getting syphilis and were dying around him. He did not lose this fight. This directly relates to the question I know you're asking yourself. So why is Peter Turbo ahead of the Stinkmaster with almost no lore to back it up? Well, it comes down to the fact that Peter is a Daemon Primarch of not 1, not 2, but all 4 gods of chaos. This means that unlike his brothers who are bound to a single chaos god, Perturabo can, in theory, draw upon all 4 of the ruinous powers. Why does this matter? Because it gives Perturabo a versatility and tactical depth the others lack. In the Arc of Omens campaign, Perturabo corrupts the planet of Toil by invoking Nurgle's influence. Not Khorne, not Tzeentch, but the Stink God himself. This shows that Perturabo isn't just passively gifted with warp power, he actively deploys chaos energies with precision and purpose. He's not a frothing berserker or a lightning rod for warp storms, he's an engineer of demonic warfare, picking the right corruption tool for the job. Now, combine that with the healing and capabilities of a Daemon Primarch, who is already one of the most durable and inventive Primarchs, and you can see why I placed him above the biggest loser Mortarion. That's without even bringing up his ingenuity, which could be incredibly deadly to his kin, if given prep time, like Batman. Perturabo could probably invent a demon-powered orbital cannon that drops literal nukes from low orbit. His big brains, combined with his tankiness and now his warp-powered versatility, makes him one of the most dangerous and flexible threats in the galaxy. So once again, why is he ahead of Mortarion? Because Mortarion is highly specialized. Mortarion, being the servant of Nurgle, is extremely tough, yes. Possibly the most durable Primarch in terms of raw endurance. But that's kinda all he's got going for him. His toolkit is focused entirely on attrition and disease. He wants a slow, grinding battle where you wither away. But Perturabo, who fought against the Lord of Iron, did not seem affected, although his army was. Once again, I'm reiterating that the excerpt says the Iron Warriors were affected, not Peter himself. In my mind, that makes Perturabo not just a fortress, but a mobile, malevolent think tank of death. And that's why he's earned the number 4 spot. Fulgrim is next, and oh boy, this guy is something else. Known to his fans as the Rape Snake, Fulgrim was the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, a legion dedicated to martial excellence, artistic perfection, and the belief that everything in life should be extra, fabulous, and preferably done shirtless. Before he sprouted a snake tail, extra arms, and started moaning his battle cries, Fulgrim was actually kind of cool. He was loyal, elegant, charismatic, and an absolute monster in combat. He wasn't just a killer, he was a beautiful killer. He had a deep passion for art, architecture, music, and aesthetics, and genuinely wanted his legion to reflect that refined vision of human perfection. But then, he picked up a sword. While conquering the Illyrian, Fulgrim acquired the infamous Lair Blade, a Xenos weapon that, unknowns to him, had a demon of Slaanesh chilling inside it like it was an Airbnb. The blade started slowly whispering sweet nothings into Fulgrim's ear, stuff like, "You deserve more," "Mortarion smells like feet," and "Wouldn't ketamine make this painting better?" Over time, Fulgrim's standards of perfection twisted from beauty and discipline into indulgence and excess. Enter Horus, everyone's favorite galactic backstabber. While Fulgrim was busy stroking his new sword and doing heinous amounts of ketamine, Horus hit him up with the biggest, "Hey bro, you up?" He laid out his plan to overthrow Big Daddy E and told Fulgrim there was a VIP seat on the Heresy Express. Normally, Fulgrim would have given that idea a hard pass, but he wasn't exactly driving his own brain anymore. Once he threw in with Horus, the descent was rapid. The Emperor's Children went from regal warriors to depraved lunatics faster than you could say, "Did someone take my ketamine?" They traded honor for ecstasy, discipline for drugs, and started measuring battle success by how loud their victims screamed. Fulgrim's transformation from tragic artist to horny murderer didn't just stop at betrayal and bad decisions. Oh no, it did not. That was just Act 1. You see, for most traitor Primarchs, the path to demonhood is paved with skulls, blood, and the occasional dramatic monologue. For Fulgrim, it was paved with opera, orgies, and enough recreational drugs to kill a hive city. Fulgrim would ascend to demonhood after tricking his brother Peter Turbo into a ritual where he would absorb his life force and ascend to snakehood. Peter Turbo obviously got pissed off, he was bamboozled, and attempted to stop the ritual, but obviously failed as Fulgrim reached Apotheosis and sprouted a goddamn tail. Abandoning his legion, he would only return briefly for the Siege of Terra, where he and his legion would turn civilians into warp ketamine. Fulgrim would go on to fight Rogel Dorn, where, I kid you not guys, Fulgrim would grow bored and then abandon the siege for a life of excess and heinous amounts of drugs. This guy's definitely addicted to ketamine. Since the fall of Horus, Fulgrim has been living his best depraved demon life. After the Siege of Terra, the Emperor's Children left a trail of dead planets as they fled towards the Eye of Terra. When they finally ran out of slaves, they started raiding the other traitor legions, sparking the brutal Legion War. Fulgrim later resurfaced a century later at the Battle of Thessalia, where he poisoned Rabute Gurliman in one-on-one Primarch combat. before vanishing into the warp like a glittery fever dream. At one point, he was lured back to Isstvan 3 by a sonic beacon and faced off against the loyalist dreadnought, Rylanor, only to be caught in a virus bomb that torched the planet. He survived, but his ego definitely took a hit. But now, whispers echo through the warp and the tabletop. Fulgrim may be returning in a big way, as Games Workshop has just dropped a brand new model of the Daemon Primarch. With his latest appearance, both lore and hobbyists alike are bracing for the return of the most fabulous, deranged, and drugged out of the Emperor's lost sons. Alright, I know this pick is gonna get some heat. Fulgrim? Top 3? Cow, are you high? And to say to that, not nearly as high as Fulgrim is right now. Look, I get why people clown on him. Maybe it's because of how he is constantly roasted by the Khan, or that he's literally gay, but he is by far the best showing when it comes to fighting other Primarchs. Base Fulgrim, before he became a Daemon Primarch, was already a monster. No Psyker powers, no warp buffs, just raw skill, speed, and precision. He was definitely one of the top 3 duelists among all the Primarchs, maybe behind the Lion and Sanguinius. Now elevated to Daemon Primarch status, he is something else entirely. Since Fulgrim turns into a Daemon Primarch pretty early on during the Horus Heresy, we do get to see him flex his 4 arms. Now, let's really break down Fulgrim's level up, because it's not just a transformation, it's a full-blown ascension. Like I just stated, in his base form, Fulgrim was already one of the top fighters in the entire Primarch lineup. He was faster than most could track, deadly with any blade, and had rather impressive healing abilities, even able to tank and heal from a bullet to his melon. In this same base form, he killed Ferrus Manus in a straight up duel, which is one of the few Primarch kills in the whole verse. But after he embraced Slaanesh and transformed into a Daemon Primarch, Fulgrim became something else entirely. We're talking a serpentine warp god with 4 arms, a body imbued with demonic resilience, and now full-blown psychic abilities. Not just flashy tricks either, Fulgrim can bend reality around himself with sheer willpower. His aura alone projects emotion as a weapon, overwhelming lesser beings with waves of ecstasy, terror, or despair. His speed and strength are further amped beyond mortal comprehension, and his blades, already deadly, are now infused with soul-ripping warp energy. Old Fulgrim was lethal, Demon Fulgrim is apocalyptic. And if you think that's a hyperbole, let's look at a little moment from Reflection Cracked, where Fulgrim decides to casually flex his new psychic powers. He doesn't draw a blade, he doesn't give a speech, he just looks at a Warhound Titan and crushes it with his mind. A whole ass Titan, which is designed for planetary warfare, folded like a fucking chair. That's not just power, that's absurd. That's warp enhanced, Slaanesh blessed, 4-armed anime villain power. Fulgrim doesn't need to fight, he just needs to get slightly annoyed and entire war machines die of embarrassment. Now yes, there is that whole awkward moment where Lorgar controls Fulgrim using his true name. Bit of a yikes, but let's keep it real. That's a very specific magical weakness and it's not exclusive to Fulgrim. Hell, Kaldor Drago, who's not even a Primarch, does the exact same thing to Mortarion, which I'm not gonna lie is way more embarrassing. I didn't even want to bring it up because I know somewhere out there, Mortarion fanboys, all 6 of them, are crying farts right now. But hey, facts are facts.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
Oh, and the whole he lost to Dorn thing? Nope. Dorn literally admits Fulgrim could have won. Fulgrim didn't just lose, he just got bored and left. That's not an L, that's what happens when you're so far above the game, you don't even feel like playing. And finally, let's not forget his fight with Butte Girlyman. Fulgrim doesn't just beat him, he styles on him. Gilliman gets his throat slashed and poisoned, and Fulgrim dips before anyone even knows what happened. Fulgrim was already one of the best base Primarchs without any warp nonsense. Now that he's a Demon Prince with enhanced stats, psychic might, and the blessings of Slaanesh, he's on another plane of existence. And, just to top it all off, a brand new Fulgrim model just dropped, which means Big Snake Energy is back on the menu.
Slight meat
Back on the menu, boys!
Whoa, why did everyone get so angry all of a sudden? Surprised with me putting Angron at 2? Well, I'm right, and I'll explain why in a second. Let me first start by explaining who the schizophrenic angry boy is first. Angron, Primarch of the World Eaters, is what happens when you mash a Greek tragedy with Mad Max and then repeatedly slam it into a wall. Born in chains on the nightmare world of Nucera, where slavery and child gladiators were commonplace, Angron survived the pits by bonding with fellow fighters, only to watch them all die when he led a failed rebellion. Then came the Emperor who saved Angron by teleporting him away and leaving his friends to die. From then on, Angron's relationship with his dad was one endless middle finger. Enter the butcher nails, brain implants that convert pain into pleasure, rage into focus. Angron didn't choose them, they were forced on him. And in peak traumatized war dad fashion, he then installed them into his whole legion. Goodbye tactics, hello berserker murder cult. Under Angron, the World Eaters went full chaos mode. Charging into battle, chain axes howling, no plan in sight, just blood, blood, blood. So when Horus offered him a spot in the heresy with vengeance on the menu, Horus didn't hesitate. He wasn't there for ideology, he just wanted to take the Emperor's head. Literally. From then on, Angron was the heresy's sledgehammer. No schemes, just slaughter. During the Shadow Crusade, he and Lorgar ripped through the Ultramar realm like a bloody tornado, razing world after world, just because they could. How could it get much worse than that? Well, it can. Have you guys ever heard of Blood for the Blood God? That's exactly where things went next for Angron. After carving a bloody path across Ultramar, Angron and Lorgar finally drew out Rebute Girlyman. Gilliman tried to stop them, but this duel was a joke, especially with Lorgar channeling the souls of the dead mid-fight to trigger Angron's ascension to demonhood. It wasn't just a power move, Lorgar believed becoming a demon would save Angron from the butcher's nails that were slowly killing him, but salvation came at a price. Angron's transformation stripped away what little reason he had left, turning him into the pure avatar of Khorne's rage. Logic gone, bloodlust internal. By the time of the Siege of Terra, Angron was a city-leveling berserker. In his brutal clash with Sanguinius, he tore through anything in his path until the Angel, ever the strategist, baited him into striking. That gave Sanguinius the chance to rip the butcher's nails from Angron's skull, banishing the Daemon Primarch from real space. After centuries of destruction during the Dominion of Fire and the First War for Armageddon, he remains a brutal weapon of slaughter. Though defeated by the Grey Knights at Armageddon, he re-emerged during the Great Rift, massacring Imperial forces with his World Eaters and Khorne demons. He played a key role in the Battle of Malak Bel, where his rage caused a massive psychic shockwave. His most recent confrontation with the Blood Angels ended in a brutal duel with Lionel Johnson, resulting in his beheading. However, his return to real space is inevitable and he continues to serve Khorne, leading his legions in endless bloodshed. Alright, we've finally reached the part of the video where I get to explain loudly and with joy why Angron is cooler than all your favorite Daemon Primarchs. And I am relishing this moment. With Angron at number 2, you probably already know who's number 1. Spoiler, he did nothing wrong. But we'll get to the furry in a second. Angron is, without question, the most physically dominant Primarch, and it's not even close. Exalted by Khorne, the literal god of blood and combat, Angron is a walking apocalypse. I honestly had him at number 1 for a little bit, but after debating with myself and my entire council of imaginary friends, he ultimately landed on number 2. So why does he beat out the rest of his evil mutated brothers? Now I know some of you are already foaming at the mouth, but hey, Cal! Angron lost to the Grey Knights, Sanguinius, the Lion, heck, everyone! Yes, he did, little Timmy, but weirdly enough, that actually makes him look even stronger. Hear me out, guys. First off, remember what I said at the start of this video? The Daemon Primarchs are glorified punching bags. They're not characters, they're narrative tools. They're brought in to show how utterly doomed the protagonists are, and then they promptly lose so all the heroes can look cool. And somehow, Angron is always the one getting hit with the steel chair. That tells me one thing. The writers know he's dangerous. They keep bringing him back because he's an intimidating force, someone the Imperium needs to throw everything at just to slow down. Second, look at the people who've actually beaten Angron. These aren't some clowns, these are the best of the best. Let's break them down. First up, we have the Grey Knights. Yes, Angron lost to a group of psyker space marines. But pause. Think about what I just said. These aren't just your run-of-the-mill space marines, these are the Emperor's psychic murder squad. Genetically enhanced, demon-slaying, warp-hardened warriors trained to specifically kill beings like Angron. And it wasn't just one squad. It was 110 of them. A full company and then some. And Angron killed more than half of them before finally going down. That's insane. Gilman nearly got dropped by a single Space Marine squad. Yes, he was caught off guard, but that ruins my point, guys, so I'm gonna ignore that. In my opinion, the strongest baseline Primarch. He can fly, he can see the future, he has reflexes so fast, it makes Spider-Man look like he's running in slow motion. During the Siege of Terra, Angron and the Golden Hawkboy go toe to toe. And yeah, Angron loses, but it's not that simple, folks. Sanguinius at this point literally has plot armor. He knows he won't die until he boards the Vengeful Spirit, so the writers give him every advantage. Even then, Angron nearly wins. He wounds Sanguiniously badly with his Black Blade. Sanguinius only manages to defeat him by exploiting the butcher nails embedded in Angron's skull. He rips them out with his bare hands, banishing Angron. Let that sink in. The guy had to go full 40 chess mode just to beat him. That's not a clean win, that's desperation. And then finally we have the Lion. In their recent duel on Wormwood, it's clear Angron is stronger, faster, and more feral. The Lion survives not by overpowering him, but by using trickery, his new power, the spectral phasing, and the Emperor's magic shield that deflects all attacks. He phases in and out of reality, wears Angron down, and eventually lands a decisive blow, not because he's the better fighter, but because he's smarter. So let's recap. Angron loses, but only to people at the very top of the Primarch power scale. They don't just beat him with brute strength, they beat him with cunning, plot armor, or a mix of both. In my Primarch rankings, Sanguinius and the Lion are top 3, and even they can't handle Angron in a straight up fight. That's not a mark against him, that's a flex. So to all you Angron haters out there, shut up bro, stay angry. Your boy might lose a lot, but he only loses to the very best, and he makes them bleed for it every single time. Now, let's talk about his powers and abilities, especially now that he's gotten a massive glow up in the 42nd millennium. So I know little Timmy's probably asking me, why does Angron get a more in-depth analysis of his abilities and the other Primarchs don't? Well guys, I feel like I have to fully explain why I'm putting him at number 2, or he'll come to my house and kill me. I'll do the same for my best boy up next, since I know everyone and their chaos worshipping dog is going to question my decisions. First off, as I mentioned a million times throughout this video, Angron is a Daemon Primarch, which means he literally can't die. His soul is bound to the warp, so wounds, he reknits them like a pissed off Wolverine on steroids. And if he's ever defeated, he doesn't stay gone, he just comes back. One key thing I want to highlight here is that since his return in the 42nd millennium, Angron can no longer be banished back to the warp for extended periods of time. If he is banished, he always returns exactly 8 weeks, 8 days, and 8 hours later.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
This isn't just some quirky chaos calendar feature. It's believed Angron gained this ability thanks to the creation of the Great Rift. That's fucking nuts though. Because unlike his brothers who take an uncountable amount of time to claw their way back into real space, years, decades, or longer, Angron has a built-in rage respawn timer. Just imagine you're a Grey Knight. You've lost half your company trying to banish this beast. You barely survive, but guess what? Too bad, he's back in 2 months. Hope you got Hazard Bay and a good therapist, brother. Now, stack that with the fact that he's a warrior exalted by Khorne, meaning he has immense psychic resistance, all demons of the Blood God are heavily resistant to psychic attacks, because you know, Khorne hates psychers more than Angron hates peace and quiet. So one of the few tools most people even have to fight a warp monstrosity are utterly useless against Angron. This makes Angron not just strong, but very hard to counter. Even before Demonhood, Angron was a monster. He never lost a single Primarch duel. Yes guys, he beat both Leman Russ, Shut Up Furry Lovers, and Rabute Gurlaman. Dude even literally held up a Warhound Titan once. Do you know how much a Warhound Titan weighs? That's like holding up a kaiju with Roid Rage and a fucking cathedral on its back. So now, as a Daemon Primarch, he has enhanced speed, strength, flight, warp manipulation, and healing. Now add this to Angron being able to return to real space in a set amount of time, and the fact that he is a demon of Khorne and resistant to Psyker abilities, you get a true monster. Put it all together, and what you get is a blood-soaked nightmare engine, an unstoppable force of carnage and hatred, a one-demon world eater apocalypse. So why the hell is he not number 1? Because despite all that power, he lost the ability to think, guys. Angron is literally retarded. He's basically a howling murder blender with a jetpack. He's unbelievably dangerous, but he fights like a rapid dog, not a warlord. Power without any of the control. Still, for the reasons above, and for the sheer terror he brings to anyone who faces him, Angron easily takes the number 2 spot. Now, let's get to number 1. You already know who it is. He's furry, he's smug, and in my completely biased opinion, he did nothing wrong. We've finally arrived at the top dog, or should I say, winged furry. The man who did nothing wrong, the purple nurple, the Crimson King, my boy, the living legend until he got wings and went full Sparkle Sorcerer gay mode, Magnus the Red. Shut up, little Timmy, I'll explain why he's number 1 in a second. It's honestly not that hard to argue, but first, we need to talk about who Magnus the Gay actually is. Magnus the Red, Primarch of the 1,000 Suns, is basically the poster child for the road to hell is paved with good intentions. As the greatest psyker in the galaxy, second only to Big Daddy Emperor, Magnus was insanely powerful, like crushing Elder Titans with his brain level of power. The man could travel across the galaxy without leaving his chair, his legion just as cracked as him. The 1,000 Suns had more psykers than any other Astartes force, and that made everyone just a teeny bit nervous. Now, don't get it twisted, guys. Magnus and his nerd squad were loyal, deeply loyal, like you're making me a little uncomfortable levels of loyal. But their warp magic was getting a little too sketchy. So Big E held the Council of Nicaea, the great no fun allowed convention where he banned the use of psychic powers across all the Astartes legions. And we all know what happened next. Magnus, thinking he knew better than literally everyone, broke Daddy's rule, saw Horus about to take the chaos bait, and tried to intervene. Obviously he failed, because apparently Horus would rather trust Erebus Dollar Tree Mr. Clean Boy than his own brother. With the knowledge that Horus had fallen, Magnus knew he had to warn the Emperor. Did he use a Vox radio? Did he send a ship? Did he send a letter? Nope. He decided to yeet a message through the warp, using the exact thing the Emperor just told him not to use. And to really hammer in that bad decision, he got help from a warp being. Spoiler, it's fucking Zinch, guys. So Magnus Kool-Aid Man himself through the webway, smashed the Emperor's super secret webway project, and doomed humanity's only real chance at survival. Nice going, champ. Now obviously, this didn't end well. The Emperor was pissed, so he sent the Space Wolves to bring Magnus to heel. And we all know how that went. Prospero burned, the 1,000 Suns got bodied, and Magnus got yeeted off the Imperium's Christmas card list. Rough one, pal. But when did he go from Magnus the Red to Magnus the Gay? Honestly, guys, it's kinda hard to say. Some could say it happened after Prospero fell, and others would say it came after the Siege of Terra, and honestly, I'm as confused as them. There's a lot of conflicting information here. Magnus appears to be a Daemon Primarch during the Siege of Terra, even quoting that he and Martirion are the same, but then he is able to sneak into the Imperial Palace, which should be impossible if he was a Daemon Primarch. So honestly guys, I have no idea, but he definitely ascends at some point. It's just kind of hard to say. I'm pretty much saying I have no fucking idea. Regardless of when, what has Magnus been up to since the end of the Siege of Terra? Well, Magnus the Red has been doing what he does best, losing. After the Rubric spell turned his legion into dusty action figures, Magnus got tricked by Tzeentch, once again, banished Ahriman, and vowed to burn the galaxy. He attacked Fenris, got banished by Logar Grimnir, but not before opening a giant warp rift over Prospero. Great job, Magnus, you really succeeded there. During the Indominus Crusade, he nearly trapped Guilliman in the Maelstrom, but got dunked on once again at Luna thanks to Guilliman and some psychic silencing nuns. In the Dark Imperium books, he tried to summon a demon army on Prospero, only to get trolled by Lucas the Trickster with the fake spell. Like honestly, what the fuck were the writers thinking here? How is Magnus gonna get tricked by a stupid space wolf? I don't understand it. He suffers from the same issue as the other Daemon Primarchs, maybe even more than the others, since he fucking constantly loses to everything under the sun. I legit despise Black Library, more specifically, Games Workshop, for making Magnus, almost a god folks, lose to people like Lucas the Trickster. Like what? I'm about to punch a hole through a wall, guys. So I know you guys are thinking, how is this dude, who got tricked by a stupid space wolf like he's a B-list villain, the strongest Daemon Primarch? First, let's address the main issue here, guys. Games Workshop has no idea how to consistently write powerful psychers, especially ones like Magnus the Red, a being who should, by all reasonable standards, break the setting in half every time he shows up. Magnus isn't just strong with the warp, no, this dude is a walking warp singularity. A psychic black hole wrapped in glowy red abs and daddy issues. We're talking about a guy who has destroyed fleets with a thought, teleported across the galaxy without a ship or ritual, cast spells that warp reality and time on a galactic scale, and casually creates black holes. And yet, the moment Magnus enters the narrative alongside a main character, he's nerfed harder than a broken Forge World datasheet. Let's talk about his fight with Rabute Guilliman during the Battle of Luna. This is a Primarch who could literally atomize Robbie G with a flick of his wrist, who could blast apart Titans and warp entire planets, and yet, he gets distracted, outplayed, and ultimately stabbed in the back like he's a dumbass. Sure, you could argue hubris, Magnus was always kind of an idiot, maybe he underestimated Guilliman, maybe he didn't take the Sisters of Silence seriously. But even after he starts trying, he still gets bodied? Why, guys? Why? It makes no sense. Maybe because the writers forgot he's a walking apocalypse. And don't even get me started on Magnus vs. Vulcan in the Webway. That entire sequence reads like someone accidentally confused Magnus with a Saturday morning villain and just ran with it. Magnus had every opportunity and every power to end Vulcan once and for all. He erases him from reality multiple times, literally reducing Vulcan's entire physical form to non-existent sparkles. But, as we all know, Vulcan is a perpetual and will keep regenerating from death. Fair enough. But why would Magnus, a being capable of rewriting the rules of reality, keep playing whack-a-mole instead of, I don't know, ripping out Vulcan's soul? The answer is simple. The writers nerfed Magnus because they didn't know how to write his god-tier power level. This is a recurring tragedy of Magnus the Red. He is written with unmatched godlike power in the lore, but the moment plot convenience or a main character steps in, his IQ and power levels drop faster than a world eater's patience during a peace talk. Let's really take a look at the absolute god tier powers Magnus the Red brings to the table, both in his base Primarch form and as a fully ascended Demon Prince of Tzeentch. Spoiler alert, this dude is fucking stupidly powerful, and Games Workshop are just a bunch of morons. Before he even became a warp field monstrosity, Magnus was already a god amongst the Primarchs. He had all the other standard Primarch buffs: superhuman strength, speed, stamina, charisma, hair so red it's probably radioactive, but Magnus goes a step further. He's the second strongest Psyker in the entire Imperium, topped only by Big E himself. In my personal Primarch rankings, he's number 2 on the list, right below Sanguinius, and honestly, that's just because Sanguinius has literal plot armor. Magnus has been shown to atomize Astartes with a flick of his mind, blasts a literal psychic spear through a Primarch, Leman Russ, crushes tanks with his brain like he's playing with Legos, and can see the future, control the battlefield, and shield himself from psychic or physical harm all at the same time. This level of psychic might could be compared to Daemon Prince Fulgrim or Lorgar, who are shown to have psychic powers similar to this form of Magnus, at least from what we see in the lore. I mean, Fulgrim and Lorgar could be a lot stronger than this, but we simply don't see it in action to say it's true. I mean, to speak frankly, and I know you guys are gonna shit on me a lot, Magnus the Red as a base Primarch might even be able to stand up against his Demon Primarch brethren and defeat them. I'm not kidding. He has reality manipulation, telepathy, telekinesis, prescience, and the ability to ward himself. Add that with the fact that he's also a Primarch with superhuman abilities, and I 100% think Magnus could throw down with his warped demented brethren. Yes, I know he lost to Leman Russ, but Space Wolf Furries, that was not a straight up fight. Magnus was also trying to save his whole legion and battle Leman Russ and his pet wolves at the same time. I would also like to note that Magnus' soul was shattered after he breached the webway, which means at the Battle of Prospero, his soul is not completely whole, meaning he was at a weaker level compared to his normal base Primarch powers. So guys, quite the feat. I'm going to legit rob the people who write Magnus as a moron. I hate you, Games Workshop, you little shits. How do you screw up a character this powerful? But now that we've talked about base Primarch Magnus, let's talk about Demon Primarch Magnus. Imagine how cracked this guy is. This dude is exalted by the literal chaos god of sorcery, magic, change, and schemes, Tzeentch, the warp deity that embodies Magnus' entire shtick. You gave a nuclear bomb more nukes. He's become an entirely different monster. As a Demon Primarch, Magnus displays a level of power and reality-bending finesse that's just not matched by the others. First off, the guy can manipulate reality on a massive scale. We're talking about casually shifting his own form to anything he wants, reshaping his surroundings, and outright rewriting the laws of physics because he feels like it. In the Battle of the Fang, this man grew larger than a Warhound Titan. He straight up became a Titan. That's not a metaphor, it's warp-fueled absurdity in action. Then, when he seized the planet of sorcerers, he reshaped the entire damn planet to his whims like he was doing interior decorating with the warp. No other Demon Primarch is shown to be doing stuff on that level. Not even close. And don't even get me started on his fight with Vulcan. That fight is pure nonsense. Magnus should have stomped him into the ground. At one point, he turned Vulcan's lungs into amber and sealed his mouth shut so he'd suffocate to death. That's insane. He did that to a fucking Primarch. That's not just psychic might, that's god tier body horror. But nope, Vulcan is a perpetual, and Magnus is apparently a moron because the writers can't be bothered to let him win even when he's doing things on an absurd level. Had he fought literally anyone else, it would have been a one-sided beatdown. And this is without even mentioning how his mere presence as a warp entity causes mortals to go insane. People lose their minds just standing near him. That's how saturated this guy is in warp juice. Now let's talk about his upgraded psychic powers because holy shit. His telepathy and telekinesis are insanely amped. He's shown crushing dreadnoughts and terminators with the flick of his fingers. And yeah, this same guy once threw a fleet of battle barges at each other. Let that sink in. He picked up void ships, those city-side megaton constructs, and made them crash into each other. Because he fucking could. Oh yeah, and he atomized a Titan with a thought. That's not war, that's playing with his toys. His telepathy is also ridiculous. He's shown mentally dominating and controlling individuals like it's a fucking hobby. Sure, we mostly see it used on Space Marines, so the extent of this is unknown, But maybe it could be used on Primarchs, but I kinda doubt it. But still, Magnus's brain is too big. And yeah, don't even get me started on his spell arsenal. Healing himself? Yep. Redirecting Lasblast, Bolter Fire, and even orbital bombardments, not just for himself, but for his entire army. That's like basically giving your troops an ignore damage cheat code. Oh, and he can summon demons of Tzeentch at will. Literal warp-born horrors pouring out at his command. It's broken. But wait, it gets even better. At one point, he literally wards himself against the weapons of the Imperium. That's right, Magnus becomes immune to anything the Imperium can throw at him. That barrier though was only shattered by Logan Grimnir wielding a fucking corn axe, which in itself is unbelievable bullshit. But that alone implies Magnus can tank almost any weapon, including those wielded by the other Daemon Primarchs, if he puts his mind to it. He's not just a godlike sorcerer, he's still a Daemon Primarch. He's stronger, faster, and more durable than almost any living creature in the galaxy. He's picked up dreadnoughts with one hand and tossed them like they're toys. He can take insane levels of firepower and is basically only vulnerable to warp-based attacks or some contrived magic MacGuffin, which of course the writers conveniently hand out to whoever's fighting him because otherwise, guess what? He fucking wins. This dude is so stupidly powerful that Games Workshop and Black Library have to nerf him in the dumbest ways possible. It's always something. Vulcan who can't die, a Sister of Silence appearing at the exact right moment, a random Chaos Axe with anti-warp properties, or worst of all, Magnus just suddenly forgetting how to use his god tier powers. There's always something stupid because the writers know if they actually let him fight smart and use his full power, they'd actually have to do their jobs for once. And let's not forget, Magnus is the second strongest Psyker in the entire 40k universe. Only the Emperor himself ranks above him, and that's saying a lot. So why the hell does everyone act like Magnus is some washed up villain? I don't get it, guys, I don't. From the feats I've seen, warping reality, melting titans with thoughts, mind controlling entire squads, blocking orbital strikes, throwing spaceships around like they're frisbees, he should easily be considered the strongest Daemon Primarch. There is no one else on this Chaos roster with a toolkit as busted as him. Fulgrim, overhyped snake boy. Mortarion can't even wash his own armpits. Angron, bro just screams and dies. Magnus is in an entirely different league. If you rank the Primarchs by actual shown feats and not the writer bias, Magnus is sitting at the top of the mountain, sipping warp-infused wine and flipping us all off. So to wrap this all up, Magnus the Red is by every reasonable measure the strongest Daemon Primarch. A psychic powerhouse, a reality-bending juggernaut, a dreadnought-throwing gigachad, and an absolute warp-drenched menace. This guy is a walking apocalypse, and the only reason he ever loses is because Games Workshop has no idea how to write a powerful character without tripping over their own lore. Fix your damn writing, Games Workshop. Stop nerfing Magnus just because you're terrified of what a properly written Daemon Primarch actually looks like. Up next, guys, is Games Workshop drugged the Eldar and stole their fucking kidneys. We're diving deep into the absolute clown show that is the Eldar lore, and trust me, you're not gonna want to miss this Elder-fueled fever dream. As always, guys, stay milked. I'll see ya in the next video.